morning, everyone. Welcome to Kelly's Creative Dream Studios. And if you are here on Friday, February 16th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are in the chat room right next door. Come on over and say hello. If you're into lurking, that's fine too. We're just happy to have you here. If you've been to my channel before, you know I'm trying to get back on schedule. I'm trying. If you're new to my channel, bear with me because when my husband's home, I don't do it a lot, so my channel's been kind of quiet. But I am trying to still keep up with the Friday premieres, and I have a special one today. We are playing with the 5x7 Gelli Plate. Now, you do not have to have the 5x7. Any size Gelli Plate will work, but I'm going to show you why this one is going to be a must-have in your studio. And I have purchased mine from Spectrum Art Creations. I'll leave the link for their all their link information down below, as well as a direct link to this Gelli press. So, if you were in either one of our Facebook groups, you have a supply list, but while I'm gathering things together, I'm going to go ahead and give you the supply list if you want to grab things really quick and play along. We're going to be using a Gelli Plate, distress inks. Now, they do need to be distress inks, not alcohol inks. They need to be water-based inks, so they can be Stampin' Up! Inks or any of those, just not alcohol and not archival. Where you're going to need some white cardstock, and we're going to cut that to about 4 by 5-ish, and I'm going to show you how to do that from an 8.5 by 11 sheet if you've not done that before. We're going to use a variety sizes of shape punches, anything 2 inches and smaller. You're going to need a brayer, and I'm loving this little brayer that I picked up at Dollar Tree, but any small brayer will work. You're going to want some baby wipes, and I think I have mine handy. If not, I'll grab them really super quick. And you're going to want a variety of stencils. Now I'm going to show you how to take these items and turn them into either a card or pockets or tags for your junk journals. May not get that far today. That may be part 2 for next week, because today I want to focus mostly on the Gelli printing part. So let's go ahead and get started with our cardstocks. Let's see, where did I put my white? There I go. I have pre-cut mine, but I want to show you how to cut yours to use for a 5x7 Gelli Plate. You're going to want to start with your white cardstock horizontal, so you're 11 inches this way, 8.5 this way, okay? And we're going to come in and we're going to cut this at 5.5. Now, why 5.5? Because this cuts this exactly in half. Half of 11 inches is 5.5. Then you're going to turn them, and you're going to cut them at 4.25. Why 4.25? Because 4.25 is half of 8.5. So you'll have 4 mats from one sheet of cardstock. Okay? Now I'm going to show you what I played with yesterday before we get started. And I have my stack of cardstocks here. I just moved them. I have a whole stack of these. What did I do with them? There they are. There they are. Keep those together. Okay. So what I did yesterday was I just played with my stencils and my distress inks. Now I have 5 colors from Tim Holtz, but I'm also going to be using a Stampin' Up! Today, real red ink today, because I need that specific Christmassy red for a card that I need to do. So I just went around the edges, used some stencils. This is where I cut out my circles, and then you'll see what we do with those. There we go. Another stencil. Played with that one, smucked it up a little bit, but that's okay. Smooshing and messing things up is a good thing. And then I have this one. These were from stencils. And then these were from another stencil. These were from a grungy stencil. So let's start with our Gelli Plate. Okay, and I'm going to move this piece of cardstock out of my way. Trying to keep things in order over here. Move my stack of papers. And I want to show you what is really cool about this size of a gel plate before we get too far in. Note, and I saw this on a video. Do you think I can find that video now to link it down below? Oh, of course not. Okay, I want to see if I can get this up close. Can you see those little hairs sticking off there? I do not recommend using a the brushes for distress brushes, because the bristles catch in your Gelli Plate, and then you gotta wash the Gelli Plate to get rid of them. So I do not recommend that. Use your Tim Holtz distress tool. Use your finger daubers, something like that. And I'm just going to lay this down on my, I'll move it up a little bit so I make sure I'm plenty of room in camera. Now, here's what I wanted to show you. Notice that mat's not going to go anywhere once you put it down on something. It's not going to shift on you. So here's the cool thing. I'm going to take this piece of cardstock and I'm going to lay it there. Actually, before I do that, let me show you this one. Let's do this first, and let's show you why. We lay this down, get out my distress ink, and you either have to do one of two things. You have to tape this down, or you have to hold it and work around your fingers, work under your arm to try and get to your edges, okay? Say if you want to put a stencil down here. By the way, I'm using Chalbella, Spectrum Art Creations, and Grunge stickers or stencils today. But you lay that down, and again, you have to hold it in place to keep it from going anywhere. Otherwise, it wants to shift on you. You can't just do this and expect everything to stay in place. Here's where the gel plate comes in handy. Let's put our gel plate back over here. Put it down. Grab a piece of our cardstock and put it down. That cardstock doesn't go anywhere. It stays where you put it. Now I cut these to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I had the rim of my Gelli Plate that I could come in with and distress, okay? So now I can come in and I don't have to touch this paper at all. It's not going to move. So I'm not trying to work underneath my hand. I'm not having to switch my fingers. And if you put tape down on the corners to hold it in place, the tape is not going to stick to that Gelli Plate very well. And if it does, you're putting it on the corners, which means you have corner sections that you're not able to distress. But this way, it's not going to move. Now let's come back in with that stencil. And if you lay this to where it covers, you can stick it down to your Gelli Plate, and you can come in, and you do not have to hold the stencil in place either. Now you're not going to swirl, especially if you have any kind of a stencil that has detail. You want to brush your colors into your stencil, just like this. And while I'm doing this, I have to say we are pressed for time this morning. Well, Thursday, as I was doing this video, because Bob has an eye appointment and we need to leave in a couple of hours. I had put the dishes to soak this morning while I was posting to Facebook and having coffee with him, and I went out to check something with him, and he had already done my dishes. He is such a sweetheart. Is there any reason he was my Valentine yesterday and every day for the last 41 years. Been married 40 years this year, but we were together a year before we got married. So there we go. See, I didn't touch that stencil at all. My hand stayed over here on my glass mat. I never touched this at all. And then we can peel this up. And looky there. Didn't do a thing with it except to lay it there. This will hold your paper and your stencils in place. The key is you have to make sure you have some Gelli Plate available around the perimeter to hold that stencil in place. Okay? Now, let's show you another one that this is good for. And yes, it's good for doing that. And let's punch a heart here. Since yesterday was Valentine's Day, let's punch a heart from our cardstock. And I'm going to punch a couple of them since I got it here, and I'm going to need that for later. Now I'm using a heart punch, and I'm not sure if it's available from Stampin' Up, but if it is, I will layer it down below. But here's the thing. What about if I just want to decorate the edges of that? Let's use pickled raspberry for that one. Picked raspberry, rather. Slide that one up. Now I've got that down on the Gelli Plate. It's not going anywhere. And watch this. This allows me to distress my edge, again, without holding it in place. And look how I can get into those notches on that heart, on that scallops. And I'd love to... I am going to invest in a new camera. I saw it used by Inked Pulp, where I have a remote that I can raise and lower the camera instead of bringing this up close. But look at that. Look how I got into the notches on that heart. And once I put that heart on the Gelli Plate, I never had to touch it. I didn't have to try holding it in place while I went around. I didn't have to worry about it picking up around the edges, so I could get a good, clean distress on that edge. And that's why I say this is something you're going to want to have handy that you can throw on here when you're distressing things. If you're distressing, say, ticket edges and lots of things like that, instead of holding it up in the air and doing this number and happen to turn things like this. And if it's not round, it's not going to spin as easy anyway. If you're doing, say, a ticket, you're not going to get that same circular motion to distress that edge. This, you can throw it on there and do your distress. And you can keep, because it's small enough, you can keep your case handy to throw it in and move it off to the side and go on with your project. And it's small enough you can pull it back out and do it again. So I really like this. Now while I have this down, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish coloring this because I'm going to stamp on it. Because I'm going to need it for a card. And where's my stamp set? And I'm going to pull, I want, let's do limited edition. And this is a Tim Holtz set called Noteworthy. And I think I got this from Maddie, but I can't be positive. And again, another one of those small tools to have handy is your WeRMemoryKeepers press. By the way, have you seen the WeRMemoryKeepers online virtual craft? I'll link it down below. They showcase like 20 new products from WeRMemoryKeepers, and one of them is something really cool, and it includes this stamp item here. So I'm going to just lay that up there in the center. I'm going to stick that right there, and then I can come in, do this, pick it up, get my memento out, and come back here in this. Put this down. And I know I didn't center that perfectly, but you know what? There we go. And now I have an element that I can use in my junk journal. I can put on the front of a card. Just that easy. Between using my... The idea is to use small items on your crafting surface. You do not have to have a lot of room to craft. Granted, we need room to store stuff that we have in our craft room. But when it comes to actual crafting, you don't need a lot. Now, we're going to go back to that. I'm going to clean my stamp off here really quick, and then we're going to go back to the Gelli Plate and show you what's next. But I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose that, and I could. Okay, so I'm going to put this away so that I have it going the right direction. Okay, now we are at 14 minutes. We got about 5 minutes or so left. So let me show you the next one. Okay, remember we did those circles. Where's the one I was punching out of? We did circles. So let's do several more circles. And I thought I had a different one here. But I want to do different sizes of circles. So let me punch this one out. Punch a couple of those out. Punch a couple of these out. Okay. I'm not going to get in there with that bigger one, so we'll have to leave it go. Now, we're going to just randomly put these around on the surface. Let's put one up here. Let's put a big one there. This one was a 1 3/8. Okay. And let's stick this one up here. Stick this one down in the corner. Let's stick that one there, that one there. And we kind of need something over here. Let's do that. Hang one off the side and do that one like that. Okay, now we have these down. They're on our Gelli plate. They are not going anywhere. Now I do want to come through and I want to use different colors. So let's start with our seedless preserves. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this. Now that one, because it's not hanging on the Gelli plate completely, I need to be kind of careful with that one. But the ones that are on the Gelli plate, and it's okay to go off the edges. Get your ink on your Gelli plate as well as on your piece. But see, I'm not holding that circle. It's not going anywhere. But the idea is you don't want to get really forceful. You want to do a light swirl or even pounce, and you got it covered. So let's put the right cover on. That might go on better. Now let's come back with our picked raspberry. Let's come in here. And we're going to go all the way around, and we're going to get some circles here. Let's come down with this one. And I'll have some circles that I can use for other things, and I'm going to go ahead and fill those in like that. But notice my hand is over here. I'm not holding this down at all. And then let's go ahead and finish filling those seedless preserves in. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's do that. Okay, and I'm going to come back with one more color. I want to come in with the Victorian Velvet. And let's do these. Now see, that one's not on that Gelli plate completely, so it does need a little help. But I can pounce it and not have to worry about it. But this keeps you from getting your fingers in your way. It's okay if we get inky. We don't mind that part. But this helps us keep from getting inky. Now, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to come back with, let's do our swirls again. It seems to be the one I have handy. Now we're going to come back with this. And, you know, I'm going to go ahead and go back to, the seedless grape, I think, because, seedless preserves, because this will give me some dimension elsewhere. See, I started to hold this down because it's what I'm used to doing. I'm used to holding that in place. But notice we are using this Gelli plate without any paint. So if you don't have a lot of time for cleanup, you just want to play and do some quick stuff, you don't want to have to wait for something to dry, this is ideal. You can use your inks and do this. Now I want to make sure that I get in those slots really well within the stencil, because we're going to pull on this stencil twice. Okay? For starters, we're going to take one of our cardstocks and we're going to lay it over top and go ahead and brayer that. And what this is going to do is it's going to further that ink into the Gelli plate. And where those colors from the inks have come up, we have a little bit of the spots in there. Now we're going to pull this up. And you want to do this careful because you don't want to pull your circles off. And then we're going to lay another one down here. And we're going to brayer this one down, burnish those colors in. And pull that up. And check that out. Isn't that super cool? Now, I have played with my jelly press. I haven't played with my big jelly plate a lot. It's cumbersome to get that great big one out and set everything up and have room to lay out that big one and room for the big pieces to dry. And it's just, but this 5x7, I guarantee if you get this 5x7, you're going to be playing with your jelly plate a whole lot more. Okay. And then I pulled that. A little bit lighter, but that's cool. And then I have these circles that I can go back and do something else with. Now we are at the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to stop here for today. Come back. Take time this week to play with this and get you some mats ready to go. And next Friday, I will show you how we turn this into elements for our junk journals or to make cards. That's it for me in the studio today. I hope you've played along and I hope you've enjoyed this process. And I hope you go pick you up a 5x7 jelly plate if you don't already own one. Here's the other thing. If you have the big one, you could cut it up and make smaller ones, but then what are you going to do when you need or want to play with a bigger surface? Save that for later. This is not expensive. Invest in the small 5x7, and I guarantee you're going to be really glad you did. Remember, to share, subscribe. Oh, please share this out and let other people come see the value of this smaller jelly plate, and I will see you back here next week. Bob leaves on Tuesday, and I will be back in the studio. Creative blessings.